Hi, I'm Whack.
Hey, and I'm Pat. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Weekly Orbit, the week ending Friday, April 12th. We're going to try to consolidate all the week's news of Rocket Pool in about 30 minutes. Whack, looks like you changed your background. Where's
Yeah,
all the books?
the books will be back next week.
Oh, okay.
I've just decided to move around a little bit today, so
they're getting
here I am.
they're getting a dusting. Well, let's share this week's news, and we'll go over prices first. So Ethereum currently at 3,508.
Yep.
Yeah, 7 days ago we're at 3381. So we're up a little bit, but again we're in this like range, anywhere from 32 to 37 it seems. This Rocket Pool RPL chart is kind of terrible, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
It's not looking good. Last week we were at 2782. Right now we're at 2660. The ratio last week was 0.0082. Right now we're at 0.0076. So we're down a little bit as well. Do you want to talk about prices? There's not much to talk about, I guess. It's just flat
No, it's
or a
just,
little down.
well, down actually, yeah. So we've been down pretty much for the last year. That's clear for everyone to see. For a few months we kind of stabilized a little bit, but it looks like that support is kind of broken now, and we're on the dollar. We're not too bad, like around that $26 mark. It's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. But against ETH, like we really have shown a lot of weakness, and we're actually like treading around those, cycle low numbers right now. It's a weak time for Rocket Pool, and it hurts, right? And I think one of the things that's happening right now is people might be selling some of their crypto to pay for taxes in the US. So that might be adding to some of the sell pressure, but I'm not sure. It could just be that, right now the narrative is not with Rocket Pool at all. The narrative is with like liquid restaking tokens, eigenlayer stuff. That seems to be like the thing that's caught people's attention. What's really funny is like, EtherFi had their airdrop a few weeks ago, and it looks like swear they're going to be doing their airdrop in the next couple of weeks, but they're already talking about like their season 2 of airdrops, right? So what they're doing is trying to keep liquidity and try to keep the people still farming their airdrop and like trapped in their system. And until that kind of gets washed out, then, we it might be that Rocket Pool kind of lags until then. And it's not fun when you're in the community. Like there's been a lot of negative sentiment lately. Even more people are under collateralized, and in the last couple of months we've had some pumps on rewards day for people kind of topping up their validators into rewards. But that didn't even really materialize yesterday, and there were a few people sharing sentiments that they're not topping up for the first time, or that they are actually below collateral for the first time. These were people with higher collateral levels, like 100% or maybe like 70-80% who are now, well, maybe not that high actually, maybe like 20-30% who are now under collateralized. So it's tough out there. Like people are struggling, and it's not fun.
No, and well, we're definitely in a bear market for RPL, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But the time to build is during a bear, as they say. And there's a lot of building going on. Almost like I feel like it's a version 2 of Rocket Pool, a complete rework. And we've got, hopefully during this time when these LRTs are getting a lot of the attention, season 1, season 2, with all that stuff, by the time the markets swing, that becomes less of a narrative. Rocket Pool will have built some stuff to bring people back. So I guess we're using this time to make it a better product, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Is like, and it gives me it makes me feel positive for the future. But it is no doubt about it. It's hard right now.
Yeah, and I think Rocket Pool just can't compete, right? So for example, let me give you an example. So with EtherFi, if you had put in a few hundred ETH, sorry, not a few hundred ETH, like a few ETH in there, the rewards that you were getting were basically 70% APR. Like there's no way that anything can compete with that, right? Like, if you put in $1,000 for 3 months, you're getting like $250 back. Like that is just unheard of for rewards, and there's no one that can compete with that. Like it just makes sense for people to like ape into those services. However, are those people there because they believe in the service, or are those people there because they believe in the 70% APR, right? And I keep saying that, is it cope to think that? I don't think it is. It makes sense, right? These people here for 70% APR, they're not going to stay around when there's only 3% APR that might happen, or 4% APR from staking rewards. At that point, things are going to change. But yeah. Anyway, what's this chart you have on the screen?
Yeah, this chart, we're talking about, RPL collateral. And if we look closely, the vast majority of node operators are right at 10% or below.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how to read this because we got 1,004 node operators listed right at 10, or is that 10 to 15?
Yeah, 10 to 15%. Yeah,
okay.
That's right. Yeah.
And then we got about 869 below 10.
5 to 10%.
So, yeah. So it's this chart's been moving to the left for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And, hey, can the devs do something, as they say. However, it looks like there's stuff being filled. That's for sure. It was rewards day today or earlier today, depending on where you were in the world. And, we did have some smoothing pool rewards put out. It was a lower month whack. We had the balance was 214 ETH. That's kind of on the low side. I guess not much volatility in the markets recently over the last 28 days.
ETH gas has been low, volatility has been low. All of those things contribute to there being less for the smoothing pool. This was actually like the worst month that we've had since April 23. And the reason why this is even worse it might be actually the worst month ever. And the reason for that is because we have so many more validators in the smoothing pool now, whereas in those previous months, the smoothing pool was much smaller. The smoothing pool is much bigger now. So as a percentage of validators, we've actually had a really bad time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, hopefully good times coming ahead. Let's see, deposit pool. Let's talk about that for a sec.
Yeah.
So we're down. So the pool max is 18,000 right now. We're around 12,370. So there's some room, about 5,600 ETH space. I wanted to have a little discussion about in our tokenomics, we've been talking so much about node operators and how do we get more? How do we get people to stake? And then the other side of that equation is our ETH, right? Without our ETH demand, we'll burn through the deposit pool quickly. And then you have node operators kind of waiting for people to deposit. So one thing I think we'll have to think about is make sure that we incentivize the use of our ETH in DeFi. And because if we don't, this equation is going to be lopsided. We're going to make it super great for node operators, great yield, the best in staking. But, if you can't match up your ETH with the borrowed ETH, then what's the point? So do you have any thoughts on our ETH demand and deposit pool?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first time in a long time that we've had sustained space in the deposit pool. And the reason for that is because people are taking their ETH and putting it into Swell and EtherFi instead of putting it in Rocket Pool, right? Like, why get that 3% return when you can get 70% return basically by farming points and getting airdrops? Now, of course, that's not a guarantee of anything, but it's more attractive for people that's what they're doing. Now, you absolutely are right. One of my biggest worries about the tokenomics changes is about the RETH demand and how much RETH demand is there. And the idea was, there's a lot of latent demand. Whenever there's space in the deposit pool, it fills up right away. Like, we've had tens of thousands of ETH being deposited within a day to fill up the deposit pool. Like, this is all going to be good. It's all going to be gravy. But the thing is, we literally will potentially need millions of RETH worth of demand, and we only have 525,000 RETH at the moment. So that's a whole lot of growth for RETH demand to come. Now, there are things that we can do that will help with that, and one of those is universal variable commission. So when the deposit pool has space, we will incentivize the minting of RETH by lowering the commission on RETH, and then that'll take out a node operator share. And when we need node operators, then we'll increase the commission on RETH and give more money to node operators, hoping that more node operators will join. So that's a system that will be coming into the new tokenomics. potentially if it gets voted through, of course. But that is something that, we can use to help stimulate growth for our ETH. Also, right now in the IMC, it's not actually part of their charter to incentivize the minting of our ETH. They do it indirectly, where they pay for liquidity. People want the rewards for the liquidity providing, then they will mint our ETH to try to get those yield. But you can get up to 20% on Balancer right now, which is amazing. But what they want, it might be that we can actually even put some money towards the direct incentivization of the minting of our ETH itself. Now that, of course, would require a charter change, but it's something that could happen.
Right.
So we've got tools.
It's nice to know we've got a couple. You've got these switches or knobs we can use with the IMC to incentivize with universal variable commission. We can tweak it based on market demand. So there's solutions to making sure we can stimulate our ETH. But just through the last few months, most of the focus on tokenomics has been talking about the node operator side, but the our ETH side is just as important.
Of course, without the our ETH side, we're dead.
Yeah, no doubt. There was a really good community call that Jasper hosted yesterday. They talked about flat money, which is a protocol that's utilizing our ETH. And there was also Langers was on, and lots of questions were given to him about the teams, what their sentiment is on some of the tokenomics changes. So I recommend, I'll put this in the show notes. There's a lot of good stuff in here. You should take a listen and see what the team did. They're considering some of the legal risks of the value capture for RPL. And we can talk about that a little bit, because I don't think we did, last week Jasper and I were talking about it a little bit. Just as an aside, a friend of the pod, Samus, he has a really great spreadsheet here that breaks down the tokenomics discussion into different categories. So if you're struggling to take it all in, or you just want to consolidate, where are we at? This is a really nice spreadsheet. Kind of gives you an update about, where is the support for what are the ideas, which ones are universally supported, which ones are mostly supported. Talks about sublinear bonding, and then RPL capture, universal variable commission, and other things. So I'll put this in the show notes. This is a really nice thing that Samus did. But one of the things that Langers was talking about was consulting with some legal experts about which of the RPL value capture mechanisms is the least risky in terms of, there's always risk, it's a spectrum. And there's the voter share capture, where if you stake RPL with the protocol and you have the right to vote, that you would get a bonus commission. And then there's the buy and burn, which some of the ETH commission that comes from ETH only node operators would go to buying RPL on the secondary market and then burning it. And then there's a third, which is single-sided LP liquidity provider, where that some of that ETH commission goes into a almost like a DEX pool, which it puts tons of ETH in, which then almost provides a buying pressure for RPL. It helps so in that sense, it's providing buying pressure, but also providing liquidity, deep liquidity to RPL, which we don't really have. So anyways, any thoughts on RPL capture that you want to share?
So this is actually a discussion that's ongoing right now, when people are quite interested in their preferred ideas. There are a couple of really good points. So one of them was from Long for Wisdom on the forum, talked about how Maker started with a buy, back, and burn for the MKR token, and how people really liked the idea, but the impact of it wasn't as great as it could be. And eventually Maker actually went to a buy and liquidity providing model. So that's how they ended up doing it. I think at the moment we're still trying to figure out what would be best for Rocket Pool, and of course the legal aspect of it as well. But the voter share would be best for someone like NodeSet, because you could put they still have a market for RPL on their side then. because they'd be getting rewards coming in as RPL rewards, staking rewards. So that, node set guys are very strongly in favor of that. Then the buyback and burn and the LP stuff is, I think, what has the community interest, and the buyback and burn is the one that I think the community as a whole is most interested in. And the thing that happens with that is, you can see it every month, right? There's this tangible burning that's taking place. And, for the first few months, it might not be much of a burn because we don't have that much revenue coming in. But as the protocol grows and gets bigger, every month the amount of RPL that will be burned will be greater and greater as well. And then it kind of becomes like a snowball effect, right? Like, it's funny because the protocol grows, you burn more RPL, people get more interested in Rocket Pool and RPL, therefore they buy the RPL token, it drives the price up because they want more burn to happen. So it can be like a nice feedback loop. With the liquidity thing, it's really interesting because the outcome is actually similar to a buyback and burn, but it's just not as obvious that is happening. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. Okay, so there's a balancer pool. Balancer seems to be the pool that Val likes the most, and he's the one who's the big champion of this idea. And there are other protocols that have balancer pools with literally hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity in there. Like there's an Aave pool with $180 million of Aave on one side and wrapped ETH on the other side. So these are not small tokens. These are not small liquidity pools. So what would happen is you would have a pool and the IMC or whoever's managing it would have a target size of that pool, say $10 million or $20 million or $100 million. And what would happen is we would just keep putting ETH or our ETH maybe into that pool as the buy side. So right now, we don't have much buy side liquidity on DEXs. It's mostly in centralized exchanges. But what this would do would then add buy side liquidity on DEXs, which is really cool. It gives confidence in the market. And what ends up happening is, say for example, the price is $30, then that liquidity can be added like $29.99 and below, right? So it acts as a wall that just gets bigger and bigger every month. Now you might think, hey, what if people sell into that? Right? So if they just be like, oh, there's all this ETH, I'm going to sell my RPL and drive the price down because now I have liquidity. Before, if I did that, I would have bad slippage, but now I'm doing it and I don't have bad slippage, so I'm just going to sell. That is a possibility. But what would happen then is, as the IMC added more, not the IMC, I'm just saying IMC, it might be some other committee that we make up or something. As we add more and more ETH into that pool, the size of the pool would get bigger, right, in terms of like dollar amount. And then once it hits that target dollar amount, then what we can do is start removing the RPL that we bought using our ETH or our ETH. We can start removing that and burning it. So you can still have the aspect of it. It's just a little bit more indirect, and you're getting all this added benefit of having like amazing liquidity, which would add a lot of confidence in the protocol. So I've actually started to like the liquidity providing side of it more than I did before, but I'm still thinking about it, and I'm still trying to figure out which I think would be best.
Yeah, it's a little more complex than the buy and burn, definitely. And then there's also, are you relying on a balancer pool? Because if you're relying on there's a bug in balancer, that's going to affect it. That's another risk, right?
Balancer is like very, very, very like solid right now. It's like Uniswap in the sense that it's a honeypot, right? Like there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars in there, and it's a huge incentive for people to attack it and try to drain it, and that's there. There's no denying that. And if it did happen, it would be very, very bad. That would be the bad outcome, basically. Sure. But you have like there's a sense of like trust in that because it has Lindy. It's survived for a long time. It's a huge honeypot that's not been hacked. The contracts for the on balance are actually quite simple, and they've been audited many times by the best in the business. So I think I'm not too worried about that. Bad outcome, but the positives definitely like outweigh that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those risks. What are the risks? It's, there's smart contract risk. But you're right. It's got Lindy effect. The upside with the buy and burn is the meme. It's a powerful meme. Burn. People don't understand burn, man. If you're in Ethereum, burn. So that's a really outstanding meme. The buy and burn's simpler. The LP. So yeah, we're gonna have, as a community, have to weigh these things against each other, right?
In reality, the actual simplest one is the increasing the voter share, because that's actually closest to what we have right now. and it's like kind of preserves that as much as it can. Like what would happen is, we have ETH only validators, and that's fine. But then we'd also have those who have voting power with RPL, and then they would get extra rewards for that voting, basically. So it's kind of like maintaining RPL rewards in a sense compared to what we have now. So that's the one actually that's closest to what we have now. The buy and burn is the biggest meme, and the LP one is the most complex, but also potentially has more utility than the buy and burn.
Right. And I think what Langer said in the community chat was, while we're consulting with legal experts on which of these three, can we decide which is more risky in terms of legal risk, that the community, we should rank which ones do you like best, because then when we find out legally which one is risky, we can throw that in as another variable into making a decision on which way to go. If we decide, for example, if voter share turns out to be the most risky in terms of legal, that's going to factor into people's thinking, because this could happen. I mean, one scenario is all of a sudden RPL, there's a thought that it might be a security, and then all of a sudden Coinbase drops it, and Binance drops it because they don't want to touch it, and that would really impact the protocol if that started happening. So the legal risk is definitely a factor that we have to consider, and that process has started. So we'll hopefully have some more information in the next couple of weeks about that, and we'll keep you updated. But it's exciting. I mean, it's really, this is the stuff that gets me excited. That we're in a bear market right now with RPL, but there's all these ideas. You take all three of them; they're all excellent. It's just which one do we want to decide on? And that's what makes me feel positive about Rocketpool going forward. Okay, let's talk about Houston. That's the other thing that happened this week. We had a little bit of a delay. Langer's posted here on the forum, or on Discord, that the Houston release date is going to move from May 6th to May 27th. He says, we feel it's important to test the transition thoroughly so that the dress rehearsal release goes as well as it can. Please bear in mind this has very little impact on our ability to scope out and start developing Saturn. So the team had a go, no-go decision, and they decided that further testing of the upgrade would be prudent. So this is kind of a bummer. It's a few weeks. It's not the worst thing. This also has downstream effects because NodeSet will be delayed a little bit as well because they need Houston on mainnet before they can start their auditing and testing. So do you have any thoughts on the Houston delay?
Yeah, it's a real shame that it's happened, but I guess I can kind of understand where the team is coming from. They just want to make sure that everything is tested as thoroughly as it could be. And I think what happened is the last audit information that came through was just a little bit too tight for timing for them to put it on Haleshki and for us to test it on Haleshki. I think that's kind of what's happened there, is that it was a little bit too close for comfort. So, I think there was still some tidbits that were coming through from audits up to a couple of weeks ago, and then to go from that straight to being in Haleshki, I think it would have they weren't as comfortable with it. Because what happens is once it goes on Haleshki as well, then the Immunify bounty kicks in, and then if anything's found, then they have to pay out. So I think the idea is let's just give it 3 weeks to do some more internal testing to make sure that once we publish to Haleshki, then it should all be good. So it should have been on the Haleshki now, right? If we were still going for the May 6th, but obviously it's not. So I think maybe in the next 2 weeks we'll probably get deployed to Haleshki, and then that's actually really cool because the Smartnode version 2 is ready for a beta release as well. So these kind of things will tie in together. There you go. Like Joe was talking about, version 2 is feature complete. So yesterday he was saying about how he's ready to call it beta 1 and just kind of put it out there on Haleshki and saying, use at your own risk. There's no support for this yet. There's no documentation for this yet. You'll literally be just, messing around yourself. There's nothing that we can do to help you. While then he can go out there and write code and study the documentation and get everyone up to scratch with what it does. But there are a few people who want to do that, right? Patches already wants to start playing with it, and there already has been. And like he said, YOLO merge it. So, that what will happen then is once once Houston goes live in Haleshki, you'll also have the Smartnode version 2. So it'll be like nice to package all that together. And then it'll be the same will be the case for mainnet as well. So once we get ready for mainnet Haleshki, not Haleshki, Houston, we'll also have the Smartnode version 2 ready and fully set to go for that as well. So it'll be nice that we'll have all of that together, but it's a shame that it's going to be those 3 weeks. And like you said, it will impact any potential whale marriages that might have been happening that we don't know about that might be happening. But then it also will impact node set by 3 weeks. That might push them into August. Then thankfully Lang is saying that it won't impact the work for Saturn, which is good, because that is time is of the essence.
Correct. Yeah, that's to me the most important thing. I'm not a software guy. I don't work in software, but my understanding is things get delayed just regularly with this stuff. Yeah. And if you notice, like the Ethereum core devs, they never put out dates because it's just things get pushed and pushed and pushed, and so this is kind of expected in a way. But I wish we could have launched May 6th, but it's okay. In terms of the version 2 of the Smartnode, my understanding is Joe has done a complete rewrite, and we're going to eliminate a lot of tech debt from the first version. Just quickly, what kind of features can we expect from version 2?
Yeah, so version 2 is going to be built on top of HTML hooks instead of like whatever platform it uses now. So the great thing that will allow later is someone can build a graphical user interface on top of the Smartnode stack. So we'll have a real GUI instead of a TUI, which is a terminal user interface, which is what we have with the config now, or just a command line interface, which is what most of the Smartnode stack still is. So I envisage there being a grant request or some kind of bounty that will be put out, to the GMC for someone to make a graphical user interface built on top of the Smartnode stack, which will actually be really exciting. And then what we could do then is once you install the Smartnode stack, it'll just be a matter of like running one command to get the GUI up and running, and then it'll just be like a web interface, basically HTML interface that you can go back and forward and do like whatever you need to do on there. So it'll actually be like a really nice system. There's some more things that are coming into it as well, like batch transactioning and a whole bunch of other things that Joe's been working on. We really need to see the docs to get the full idea of what's new. But I think it's just going to be like a much nicer, more streamlined system for everyone. Yeah,
it sounds really exciting, and it'll make it easier for node operators. Anything to make that transition, reduce friction is always is a good thing.
Yeah.
On to our last item for the week, Whack. It's not RPL related, but it's a big thing in Ethereum. Uniswap received a Wells notice from the SEC, and Hayden here tweets out that he says, "I'm not surprised. I'm just annoyed, disappointed, and ready to fight." So just so we go over this Wells notice, basically it's like the it's the letter that a firm will receive when the SEC is ready to take action. My understanding of the mechanics is the staff, they send out the Wells notice, and then they recommend to the commission that to take action. So the commission actually has to vote on this. So it's not guaranteed that, but given the hostility the SEC has, this probably is going to happen, which just from a practical standpoint, the SEC couldn't even get Ripple. They couldn't even make their case on Ripple, which is, and Uniswap is at like the other end of that spectrum. Completely decentralized. Their code's immutable. It's on the, okay, Uniswap, you're going to have to shut down. It's like, okay. It doesn't stop. I mean, it's on the internet. Version 2, V2, like that. I just don't understand that. It makes me think that the people at the SEC understand how any of this works. Anyways, I'm frustrated too, because it just makes me want to roll my eyes. But what do you think, real quick?
Yeah, I think what we need to pay attention to here as well is that we don't know what they've actually sent in the Wells notice about. So there might be some information that we just don't know what it's about, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll have to wait and to see what's going to happen with that. And so far we don't have that information. However, it seems like the SEC couldn't have chosen a worse target to go after. If they wanted to bring some kind of attention to this, because Uniswap, while it's the biggest, they're also the the most well capitalized. They've got a war chest that's over $1 billion, like from their
Yeah.
tokens, and they're very rich. Like they're very, very, very rich. And they're US based company, like all of that kind of stuff. They're going to argue that they have followed the letter of the law every step of the way. They have no control over any customer funds coming in and out of Uniswap. They've at no point in the whole cycle do they take custody of anything at all. Do they use anything at all? It's all immutable, completely immutable contracts that are out there, and they've got nothing to do with it. So it's going to be really interesting. And the governance as well for Uniswap is quite minimal. Most of the governance is just about what new chains is going to be added to, pretty much. Like it's not much more than that. And version 4 is coming out, and they said they're going to keep building. So I don't think they're going to delay version 4. And once version 4 is out, that's going to be another 2 years basically before there's version 5, because the version 3 has been going for like a couple of years now. So they're gonna keep going. Like once it's out there, like you can't stop anyone from using it without shutting down the internet. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how this goes and what the SEC is getting themselves in for.
I just don't. Yeah, I don't see the it's open. I mean, is the SEC into regulating open source software now? I mean, that's what Uniswap is. This is definitely not the low-hanging fruit. If you're in the SEC legal office and you're thinking, who can we go after? This is not it. This is like, they're at the top of the redwood.
What this does is like Uniswap is a well-known name in crypto. Like everyone knows what Uniswap is in crypto. And even some people outside of crypto know what Uniswap is. So it might just be that the SEC is trying to build some PR for itself as being tough on crypto, even though they have no intention of potentially following through with this lawsuit or, taking it to maturity. They might ask for a settlement or something, 6 months down the line once the election's over. And of course, if the Democrats lose the election, then I wouldn't be surprised if like Hester Pierce becomes the chair of the SEC and she just like outright withdraws all these lawsuits like against Coinbase, against Uniswap. I don't know how that will work, but there's a possibility of that happening. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But I think this is just a matter of the SEC trying to, throw some weight around about being tough on crypto, which they feel like they might need to do for their base. But I don't know how that's going to work.
It's just not a good way to regulate and administer regulations by. Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But it's just not, this regulation by enforcement. It's just not efficient. There's really good people out there who want to do the right thing, and you're not giving them. Hayden he set this up in Brooklyn, New York. He could have gone to Singapore. He could have gone to Dubai. No, he's like, I'm an American. I want to do this in America, trying to do the right thing, and you just slap him. It just feels like, guys, this is not the way. This is not an efficient way to regulate at all. And
absolutely.
I'm waiting for the Gensler tape to come in where he says, "Just come, Hayden. If you just came in and registered, this nonsense." He keeps. Anyways, that's enough about Uniswap. Do you have a win for this week?
Yeah, I think you asked me, so I'm gonna get ahead of you and front run your win as well. My win for the week this week was the eclipse. So I live in North America, and I'm not too far from the line of totality. So I was able to make a drive and see totality not too far away from where I live. It's really funny because the traffic was really bad of people obviously doing the same thing. And I got to where the totality was happening 4 minutes before totality. So I just about made it. Yeah, so it was really touch and go there for a minute, but I just about made it. And thankfully, I was able to see totality. So that was a really amazing experience. But I think that's your win of the week as well. So why don't you tell us about your experience?
You front run me. Yeah, I had to just ride my bicycle down the street because where I am, we are right dead center on the path. Yeah. And I like astronomy stuff, and so I was looking forward to it. And I went down where this historic building. It kind of reminds you of an old, it is an old mental hospital that looks like The Shining when you go inside, but it's been restored. It's gorgeous, but it's kind of spooky at night. So I thought this is a great place to go. And they had food trucks. They had a band playing. There's people picnicking there's a great lawn. So thousands of people were there. And it was overcast, and so we was concerned, are we going to see it? But as the it started, there would be a little break in the clouds. You could see the eclipse beginning. And what got me whack was it started getting a little darker, but like kind of on a linear scale, a little bit by bit, And then maybe about 10 minutes before totality, you could feel it was getting colder. Like it must have dropped by 5 to 10 degrees. And then over the horizon, you could see this wave of darkness coming at you. And the clouds actually, it reminds you of a day like when you look out on the horizon, you see like the clouds turn like dark blue, almost black because they're storm clouds. That's what it looked like. But it was coming at you at like 2,000 miles an hour, this blackness. And within seconds, it just became just darkness. And everyone was like, just showing emotion and like, oh my gosh, and to experience it with so many people. And then of course I got super lucky because there was a little break in the clouds during totality. You could see the diamond before and after totality. Got to see that. You could see the corona, and we even see the prominence. You could see like red flares coming off the sun with your naked eye. You didn't need to use protection. It was one of the most outstanding things I've ever seen in my life. And I would, if you're out there, put on your bucket list. You got to see totality of a solar eclipse.
Totality is the main thing, right? Like, because if you don't see totality, it's not worth it. Like, it's not the same experience at all without totality. Like, totality is what makes it. So definitely get totality. Yeah.
It's like, there was people crying. I mean, that's how emotional people got. And it's like nothing blew my expectations. Like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Yeah. And then on the backside, you can see all of a sudden it looks like sunrise on the horizon. And that's the shadow moving. And then all of a sudden, within seconds, it's bright again. And wow, it was outstanding. So that's my win for the week. I'm glad it was yours too. But luckily I didn't have to, I just had, I could have looked it up my front window and saw it, but so I didn't have to go far at all. So that was really fun. So anyways.
Wonderful.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening and watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks for being part of the Rocket Pool community. And until next week, we will see you. Take care, Whack.
Bye. See you.
Bye-bye.